COVID-19. And we now go to the second block, which is on land use implications. And I would first like to invite Joris Beckers from the Antwerpen University from Belgium to give his presentation.
All right. Okay, thank you, Rolf. I hope you can see this presentation.
It's very clear. Yeah, perfect.
All right, thank you. Well, I will have a bit of a different view compared to some of the other presentations that have been given, because I'm not focusing on transport itself, but more on a, let's say, societal change that, of course, will have its impact on transport flows and mode choice. And as an introduction, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Antwerp, and my research lays actually at the interface of economic geography with a specialization on retail geography on the one hand side, and on the other on urban logistics and, let's say, the delivery of online ordered goods. So you can imagine that the interface between both has been an interesting research field the past year. Just to sketch a bit the background of the research in Antwerp, here in Belgium, we had pre-COVID quite a traditional retail landscape where e-commerce was quite low. The big web shops here, there were the German Zalando's, Amazon's, bol.com's from the Netherlands, but local retailers well, in very few cases had an online store, and people were also not accustomed to shopping online that much. In contrast, we did have a prolonged, let's say, impact on retail because of urban sprawl and suburbanization. So that was the impact on retail centers. They were struggling before already, and then of course this Corona crisis comes with lockdowns and social distance measures and others, forced closures of stores. And that, of course, provides an extra blow to the sector. And then our research was to study to what extent this impacts the sector and how they react. And we did that by conducting two different surveys. On the one hand, we looked at the online consumer. So this is a bit similar questionnaire to what Giovanni presented earlier today, which focuses on a whole range of health issues, transportation issues, and others during COVID. And we had almost 80,000 respondents there. So that was quite a big survey. And we managed to get some e-commerce questions in that. Next to that consumer focused survey, we then looked at the local retailer, so specifically local, because as I said before, they were not really present online, and we expected a bigger impact in that sector, well, on those players in the retail sector. Of course, it's more difficult to get surveys from them, but as you see, we got 85% of the 200 retailers that we got with less than five employees. So that's what local was in our definition, small shops. You see, it's not only clothing, etc., but we also tackled the groceries and horeca, some more the fresh food providers on the other hand. I jump to an overview of the results, so I will go very quickly because of time constraints, but like the others, if there are questions, don't hesitate to ask afterwards via mail or chat. So on the one hand, what we saw for consumers, as we saw around the world, is of course an increase in online shopping. It was forced for a while because we had a 2-month lockdown here with stores closed. And unsurprisingly, you see the big bars for the non-food franchise. So these are the big players that already had an online channel before. They of course gained more market. Well, they gained, let's say, a higher turnover, more online purchases per month there. That was not surprising, but what we did find interesting is that there was also quite a lot of growth in the local e-commerce channels. On the one hand, the food providers, which is again as expected because food cannot be delivered from too far away, but this is a bit what has been presented before, the Deliveroo apps, the Uber Eats apps. That kind of apps, of course, gained a lot of extra restaurants on there. But then on the right hand side, the non-food local bars was also interesting for us because it showed that a lot of small local retailers in clothes and shoes, selling books, etc., that they too did see an increase in online sales, which was encouraging, showed that they retained a bit of market share while going online. And as been presented before, also it are the young, better educated urban households that drive this increased demand as well, and puts extra barriers for the lower incomes, the ones with lower accessibility, and which is something that has to be considered as well. Next to that, then on the side of the retailers, we see that a lot of those retailers did open an online channel because they had to, and that the medium number of online orders that of course increases a lot, and then overall that they got more or less 25% of their turnover during lockdowns compared to the pre-COVID situation, combined with a lot of measures, supporting measures here by the government that ensured that at least they had a bit of ways to survive. The question remains, of course, when those measures disappear, what will happen on that side? Now, we saw a lot of increase in online presence by local stores, but what was disturbing us a bit was that a lot of those stores had a pop-up feeling. Like you could pay very often after pickup, which puts pressure on, do they really come or not? Are all orders paid in the end or not? A lot of the web shops are built by the retailers themselves, which does not mean by definition that it's a bad web store, but you have to imagine that they have to compete with web stores from all around the world, and that stuff like pictures matter, that the number of clicks between order and purchase, that matter, that kind of stuff is makes you competitive store online. And when you don't consider these kind of things, or don't have the capacity to consider these kind of things, well, you have troubles of competing online. And then the last two parts were also a bit surprising. A lot of the retailers did the delivery themselves, even further than 10 kilometers, but often did not ask a delivery fee for that. And that showed us that maybe this stores is more a pop-up ID, not very sustainable, that the stores did just open it for a while. And after lockdown, well, we don't need the online shop and we can start selling again in our physical outlet. But e-commerce levels are probably going to remain quite high. So the question is, well, did they really capitalize on the opportunities that are there because of the pandemic, because everybody shopped online and they did pay attention to the local shop, also with a lot of advertisement from local governments, of course. But if they didn't grasp the opportunity now, with e-commerce still on the rise and probably afterwards also, it could mean the final end, or let's say the final blow for this small local brick and mortars. On the other hand, just quickly over the logistics sector, they does seem to jump on the opportunities, because on the one hand, of course, higher volume, more complex deliveries implies higher rates that they can ask. Complex deliveries because everybody was delivering everything at home, furniture, stuff for in the garden, etc. So these things that were not ordered online before. And then a final point of interest was the rise of a local last mile kind of solutions, where you see that they started to group offerings from different retailers, start to deliver them online by saying, okay, I'm not going to deliver the next day, but if you can wait 2 or 3 days, I group all the deliveries from the local shops and we deliver them in a green way for a reduced price. So that kind of offerings of putting parcel lockers, that's not a new solution, but the parcel lockers focusing on certain retail hubs that they said, okay, those retailers, you can use this locker to put your parcels that you sold online. So it does seem that they are willing to, well, come up with plans to support, of course, within economic perspective, to support local online selling, but it is to be seen whether these online stores, well, the stores themselves, will follow suit. And that was very quickly our research. Thank you for your attention.
It was very nice, and it's encouraging to see that quite a few local businesses managed to find a way to deliver goods even though we are in lockdown. Thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting.